The snow had been falling since before dawn, thick, heavy, the kind that swallowed sound and erased tracks within minutes. The rancher almost didn't go out that morning. His joints warned him, the way they did before storms turned cruel. But something tugged at him. A fence line near his dying neighbor's land had been left open for days. Wolves had been sighted, so he saddled his horse and rode out into the white silence. That's when he saw her. She was curled near the broken porch of the abandoned cabin, half buried in snow, a thin coat pulled tight around a body already losing the fight. Her lips were blue. Her hands, bare, were stiff and red, clutching a small leather satchel like it was the only thing tethering her to life. For a moment, he thought she was dead. Then she breathed. The rancher was off his horse in seconds. He wrapped her in his coat, lifted her carefully, and felt how frighteningly light she was. No food, no fire, no one. When she stirred weakly, she whispered in an accent thick with fear, "Please, don't send me back." "I won't," he said without knowing why. "You're safe now." He rode hard back to his ranch, holding her against him, shielding her from the wind with his own body. By the time they reached shelter, his beard was white with ice, but her breath was still there. Thin, fragile, alive. He laid her by the fire, rubbed warmth into her hands the way his mother had taught him, slow and steady. He didn't strip her clothes, didn't rush. Shock could kill faster than cold. When color finally crept back into her cheeks, she cried silently, tears sliding sideways into her hair. She spoke that night in broken sentences. She was a mail-order bride, sent from far away with promises written by a man she had never met. The neighbor, a widower, sick long before she arrived. By the time her wagon reached the property, he was already bedridden. "He looked at me," she whispered, staring into the fire, "like he didn't know what to do with me." She cooked, cleaned, cared for him as he coughed himself hollow. He never touched her, never married her, never paid the broker who brought her. When he died 3 days later, his distant relatives came. They took the land, they took the money. They told her she wasn't a wife, just a mistake. "She's not family," one of them said, tossing her satchel into the snow. "Let the cold decide." The rancher's jaw tightened as she spoke, but he didn't interrupt. He waited until she finished. "You can stay here," he said simply, "as long as you need." Her eyes widened. "I can work." "I know," he said, "but that's not why." The town found out within days. Some whispered, some judged, a few accused. "She's not his," one man said. "She'll owe him," another muttered. When a sheriff came asking questions, the rancher answered calmly. "She was abandoned," he said. "I didn't buy her, I didn't claim her, I kept her alive." The sheriff studied the woman standing quietly behind him, wrapped in wool, fed, steady now. "Sounds lawful to me," he said and left. She stayed through winter. She learned the land slowly, learned trust even slower. Sometimes she woke screaming from dreams of snow closing over her face. He'd light a lamp and sit nearby, not touching, just present until her breathing slowed. Spring came. She grew stronger, laughed once, surprised herself with the sound. She started planting flowers near the cabin, not because they were useful, but because she wanted something beautiful to survive. One evening she stood on the porch and said, almost to herself, "I thought I was meant to die there." He leaned against the rail. "No," he said, "you were meant to be found." When the broker eventually came sniffing around, claiming ownership, the town stood with the rancher. "She's not property," the baker said. "She's one of ours," said the schoolteacher. "And if you don't leave," added the blacksmith, "you'll be leaving anyway." The broker left. Years later, when people told the story, they said it was shocking how it all turned out. They expected romance, drama, scandal. But the truth shocked them more. The rancher never claimed her. He never demanded gratitude. He never used her fear. He gave her warmth. He gave her time. He gave her the one thing the world had stolen from her twice already. the right to choose what came next. And that choice changed everything. She didn't leave when spring warmed the ground. Not because she had nowhere to go, but because, for the first time in her life, staying felt like a decision instead of a sentence. The rancher never asked her plans again. He'd learned that asking once was enough. Choice, once given, didn't need to be hovered over. She found her place naturally, took over the small cabin closest to the creek, mended clothes with a patience that felt almost sacred, cooked meals that reminded her of a country no one here could pronounce. The ranch hands noticed how the air felt calmer when she was around, how arguments softened, how people listened a little more. But peace doesn't erase the past, it just gives it room to surface. One afternoon, a wagon rolled up carrying two men she recognized instantly. Her body knew before her mind did, the way her spine stiffened, the way her hands went cold. Relatives of the dead neighbor. They claimed paperwork, claimed land, claimed she owed them something: work, money, silence. She lived under his roof, one said. That makes her our responsibility. The rancher stepped forward, voice even. No, he said, it makes her a human being who survived your neglect. They laughed, tried intimidation, threatened courts. She surprised everyone, including herself, by stepping beside him. I was never married, she said clearly. I was never paid, I was never protected, I owe you nothing. The men scoffed. You think anyone will believe you? The rancher didn't answer. The town did. The doctor testified she'd been malnourished. The priest said no vows were ever exchanged. The postmaster confirmed letters left unanswered. The sheriff stood and said, I found her half dead in the snow. That's the only truth that matters. The men left empty-handed. That night she sat alone by the creek and shook, not from fear this time, but from the release of it. The rancher didn't interrupt. He just set a blanket around her shoulders and left a lantern nearby. You didn't have to fight, she said later. Yes, he replied gently. I did, just not for ownership. Seasons layered quietly after that. She began teaching herself to read better, slowly, stubbornly, using old ledgers and seed catalogs. He never corrected her mistakes out loud. When she finally read a full page without stopping, she laughed and cried at the same time. One autumn, she asked him something she'd held back too long. Why did you help me? She said. You didn't know me, you didn't owe me. He stared out at the fields. Because once, long ago, someone let me freeze. I survived, but I promised myself I'd never walk past it again. She nodded. That was enough. When illness came for him years later, soft at first, then firm, she became the steady one, managed the ranch, paid wages, made decisions without asking permission from anyone. On his last clear morning, he watched her from the bed and smiled. You know, he said, voice thin but certain, they'll remember this place for you. She shook her head. For what you did. He smiled again. For what you became. After he was gone, the town expected her to sell, to leave, to disappear back into the margins where women like her were supposed to go. She didn't. She kept the ranch running, renamed it not after herself, but after the storm that nearly took her life. Second winter. A reminder. Years later, when a girl arrived half-frozen, carrying a satchel and fear in equal measure, she opened the door without hesitation. You're safe, she said first. Not who are you. Not what do you owe. Safe. And that was how the shock truly unfolded, not in scandal or romance, but in something far quieter and far more dangerous to the old world. A woman who was supposed to die in the snow lived long enough to become the one who never let it happen again.